What is up today, guys? Last week we generated a random prompt for a monster called the Invincible Steak. And this week we're gonna draw him. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so in the prompt last week, our monster was randomly generated and we've been told the following about him. He had to have 7 arms, 5 legs, 10 heads, 7 eyes, 1 mouth, 10 fingers per hand, and 2 toes. This will build its body. This is his silhouette. But then some additional monster details are that he had to have hair, claws, and spikes / bones. Those will pretty much just make him look a bit more like a monster rather than just a thing, a living organism, you know what I mean? And then we had a special description that we randomly generated of an adjective and a noun. And I use the example, if someone saw Godzilla, they could say massive lizard. Well, we randomly generated the phrase invincible steak. So probably a strong steak? Yeah, whatever you make of that. So that's our prompt. Now, I took all this information, wrote it in Photoshop, and began my sketch. So I started drawing a body that was pretty thick, and I mean thick with 2 C's. Then I just shot off some limbs. Since he had to have 7 arms, I was like, okay, I can do the traditional 3 on each side, but what do I do with that 7th one? Boom, he's holding it. He's weaponizing his 7th arm. And then I just drew 5 legs, almost, equidistant from each other, going around his hips, typically where legs are. Kind of arranged like how an octopus has legs, but with 5 legs, so a pentapus. And for this initial sketch, the very first idea, I ignored the whole 10 head part, because I'm like, oh man, that's gonna be challenging to say the least to get in there. Okay, so moving on to a new document. So I started out drawing the head and I was like, it's a cow, beef, steak, you know what I mean? There's a connection there. But then the whole 10 heads, and I'm like, maybe I could draw a head for a different animal. Like, each head can be a different animal. And then I was like, wait, this is a steak. Steak is just a dead animal. What if these are skulls? And then my brain kept going, what if these skulls are all kind of attached to one another? 10 skulls, but attached to one another in such a way where it looks like one head. Because 10 heads on one body could be a little overwhelming and maybe a bit more monstrous than I'm going for here. So 10 skulls combined to form one head. So I did my research. I got on the good old Google and I found a cow skull, a pig skull, a chicken skull, and I went ahead and found a fish just so that it's, got some fish variety. There's tuna steaks, that's the thing. So I started to figure out how I'm going to, combine these heads. I started out with the cow skull because I figured that has to be the prominent one. If he's going to be a steak, most steaks are beef. I know that there's like pork blade steaks and stuff like that. But cow, moo. And then I started keeping track of my head count in the bottom there, and I started adding the fish head, and then the pig head was so big in comparison to all the others. I thought, what if the pig skull, right? The skull of the pig is here, and then the cow skull is kind of resting on top of it. Bottom portion is the pig skull with the jaw and everything, and then maybe even the pig upper part of the skull is there too, but it's wearing the cow skull. It's like a mask in a sense, but it's all the same head, even though it's 10 heads. Then I thought it'd be cool if the fish skulls and maybe a little bit of its spine too, bone spikiness, were also sticking off the sides. And then that left me with the chicken, and I thought, we could have one right here, we could have one up top going like little spikes, almost as if, it were building up spikes to go down his back. And then I just put 2 little chicken skulls going here, because it's like little spiky parts of your jawbone or whatever. And that got me to 10 heads. The pig, the cow, chicken, that's 4, chicken, that's 6, fish, that's 10. Boom, math. So I'm not a fan of my sketch, let that be clear, but it's an idea and we can refine it later. From there, I moved on to the chest, the torso, the body, whatever you want to call it, the main chunk. And I was like, maybe we'll throw in some traditional, ribs on the ribs kind of thing. Bones, spikes, they all fit in that category. Then I moved on to the arms, and the arms are they're really getting me, because I've got to fit 10 fingers on a hand, And how the frick do you do that? We'll address that later. So I was trying to come up with like this interesting beefy character for Invincible. And then I found this Belgian blue cow. Didn't know that was a thing, but they're like friggin' muscular and massive cows. So I thought I could base my anatomy off of that in a sense, you know what I mean? A little bit, or at least that's where the inspiration came from. So after having a few various body parts sketched out, I went ahead and started working on the hands and trying to figure out how I'm going to nail down this whole finger issue. I started out thinking, well, maybe what if the fingers just kind of doubled up like this, you know? Like this is what one hand would look like, just combine my palms. Wasn't exactly feeling that, so then I moved on to another one where maybe the fingers split in the middle. So it'd be all together down here, and then you'd have like two coming out of it, something like that. I was thinking that way, didn't end up going with it, but it was worth exploring the idea. So at this point, I thought I had a pretty good, you know, not perfect, but a pretty good idea of what this monster could look like. So I just drew out a little base sketch for him. And you can see right there in the middle on his chest, this is how I addressed the eye situation. There's 7 eyes. I'm a meat cutter, so I use my knowledge. Eye round steaks. Boom. And maybe those are his eyes. He can see through these eye round steaks. Bam! Knowledge. So like, it's a steak. He can see through it. He can peel it off of him, throw it somewhere, and boom. His physical massive self doesn't need to be anywhere. He can have eyes literally anywhere. Boom. And look, I'm not just cheating. It's functional. Can you really cheat in art? I mean, like tracing, but when it comes down to this, so many different interpretations. We've done a base sketch idea. It's not perfect. It's not exactly what we're looking for, but you know what? I was like, let's just jump into it. We'll figure it out. So I drew this beefy silhouette, and you know, I just threw like a little rocky terrain down there. We'll fix it later. We'll fully establish what it is. And I thought it'd be more visually interesting in terms of a silhouette and just the character design in general if all of his arms weren't the same beefiness and size and length. And some arms are coming out of the middle of arms. Some are on the shoulder. And it leads to a more interesting silhouette, which I think is pretty awesome. And from there, we're gonna start working on the 10 skulls forming one head. So I started out with a pig skull, and you gotta remember, we generated no teeth. So kind of stinks, but our tusks, teeth. I mean, they might technically be considered teeth, and they probably are now that I'm thinking about it, because I'm watching my time lapse go by, but let's roll with it. Pumbaa doesn't eat with his tusks. They're more of a weapon, right? This is a weapon. It's a weapon. Everything's a weapon. So we started out with the pig skull, and full disclosure, I've never seen a pig skull in person. I'm Googling things. So if it's a little inaccurate, you know, blame Google. And then, like I said, we put the cow skull right on top of the pig skull, almost as if it's a mask, you know what I mean? And in terms of the cow skull, I broke the horns off because we generated no horns. I mean, I guess I could have left them on and counted it as like spikes or bones, but I broke them off. So 2 skulls in, and I'm gonna go ahead and start drawing the fish. 2 on one side and 2 on the other. Honestly, I didn't fully think through how they're attached, so they're just kind of plopped on there. And it looks more like one of those like Roman emperor people that have like the little flowers in their ear or hair area. Maybe this guy's royal. He's royalty meat monster man. Then I drew some chicken skulls, threw those on there. And just like that, we have our 10 skulls in one head, so it's not, you know, like visually overwhelming, because we've already got a lot of appendages coming off this guy. I don't think we need 10 heads, at least just stacked on one another, which, unless you're doing a Hydra or something like that, might be really difficult. And with 5 legs, I went away from the whole octopus, pentapus idea, and I went more in line with what I did with the arms. So you've got your 2 main beefy legs, and then you've got a few legs growing out of those legs, and they're a little bit smaller. So again, I think it adds to the silhouette, and it's just kind of cool. And then we went and drew our eyes, which are projectiles. They're for stealth and sleuthing. Yeah, sleuthing. From there, we had a lot going on, so I went ahead and just drew everything in one color just to kind of clean it up a little in terms of where we're at right now, and then we'll add more junk onto it. Okay, so the next step was to establish the finger issue, and I combined it with the claw issue because I had to have claws, but I also had to have 10 fingers per hand. Again, lots of different interpretations can be done with this. Like, what if the second set of fingers per hand is the claw? So if I were to have 10 fingers per hand and then 10 claws on those 10 fingers, it might get a little overwhelming. I think it would have. You got your hand, and instead of, the additional fingers coming out of your hand, I was like, what if the claws started over here where like the bones and whatever tendons there are? What if the claws started out here and grew outward and became a finger of their own? So it's a bone finger claw. So he's got his meat hand, boom, meat hand, and then claws coming out of his actual hand to be separate fingers of their own. So he can have his meat hand closed and like his bone claw fingers still there that are able to grab and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really interesting way of combining two problems to give a cool solution. Man, that was a really cool quote. I like it. Alrighty, so our monster is pretty close to being fully realized at this point. So I threw down a base color and I thought, he's the invincible steak, but is he only made up of steaks? Probably not. What would be in abundance around steaks, in like a meat department or a butcher shop? Maybe a lot of ground beef, which is how he gets his form, kind of. So it's a big old pile of squishy ground beef with steaks and all sorts of bones and stuff lodged into it. That way you can't have protrusions. Man, there's that word. I don't know if I pronounced it right, but I used it last video too. So that you can have all the steaks stuck in him and just kind of sticking out, and he's walking around boom, 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 like a big old pile of ground beef with steaks in him. And I thought that was just a really fun idea to add to this, and it allows him to change his form. You can manipulate the shape of ground beef so easily. In theory, I wonder if he could take one of his arms, make it smaller, and move that ground beef across him and make one arm bigger. So like, if I'm gonna hit you with my right hand, and I don't need my left hand for anything, kind of absorb the ground beef into the body, move it over to the right arm so that the right arm is twice as big, and wail down and then bring it back. I thought that was pretty cool. So, ground beef body with steaks, stuck all over him. The invincible steak. And with ground beef, in theory, again, a bullet can shoot right through ground beef, and then the ground beef can kind of reform. Invincible. So those are pretty much my beginning thoughts on my monster and just kind of explaining the process of designing him. So enjoy the coloring, and we'll come back later and I will fully, share some secrets about this monster with you. I don't know how many there's gonna be, but we'll keep talking about him afterwards. Enjoy the montage. Alrighty, so here is my invincible steak. Man, I freaking love this. I love how I interpreted this, and I'm overly happy with this. I didn't think I'd get anything near as cool as this. Oh, and the hair. Where's the hair? Oh, nowhere. You know, he's just meat, and some areas of his meat body might not be as fresh as some other ones. So he's got little spotches. So he's got little patches of green all over him, where some meat has grown hair. Oh man, got it. And in terms of like spikes and bones coming out of him, we've got some cowboy ribeyes with the bones sticking out of him. We've got some ribeyes, some strip steaks. We've got flank steaks covering him. We've got fillets and stew meat all over him. I think this is an invincible steak. Cannot be beat. But man, oh, and I threw him in like a, like a meat cooler. You know, they've got the shelves, they've got boxes. I didn't really put all too much into the background design because I wanted him to be the standout, the forefront. But yeah, the invincible steak, and man, I freaking love this design. Not to toot my own horn or pat my own back, but that wasn't much more, but I'll take it. Alrighty, so there's my meat monster. I drew this before I uploaded the last video, so keep that in mind. It was done before you guys even knew about the prompt. Now, we've got a meat monster submission, the invincible steak, from a good friend Johnny on the old Instagram, and I'm excited to see what this looks like. Alrighty, Johnny, let's see what you got. Oh man, holy goodness, Johnny. Oh man, the invincible steak. Seeing all the heads around, all the different appendages. Frick, I would not want to mess with that. Your monster is terrifying. Like, okay, picture this, everyone. If one of these two monsters just happened to visit you in the middle of the night, which one would you be more scared of? Would you be scared of mine, which honestly isn't completely terrifying. He's kind of cool. But Johnny's is so cool that it's terrifying. Like, his massive mouth is terrifying, and the heads on him, like specifically that one, like right back here, specifically that one terrifies the frick out of me. Johnny says, I call him the steak that was left out too long. He grew with nasty stuff for so long, he became invincible. And now no one can be around him, nor can they be able to get near him. With his arms and many fingers, his heads are used as decoys for others to be trapped in his grasp. Oh, that's terrifying. Man, your design fits your story so well. All he has to do is bury himself and wait. So he's a predator, you know? He's no prey. He's not the meat people eat, no. He just buries himself. He uses his heads as decoys to lure them in, and his arms grab them and bring them in. Man, that is awesome. And he uses his legs to launch himself for the maximum speed. And his front arms have many bones like spikes for feeding to his massive mouth. Oh man, holy goodness, Johnny. Your story fits your monster so well, and it's freaking awesome. Good job, very awesome. I hope you guys really enjoyed this meat monster creation. I really hope you enjoyed Johnny's art. And yeah, guys, this has been a really fun project. And you know what? Maybe we'll do another one of these someday. Do a big old community, either monster or character design, or some sort of art where we can all share our thoughts and come together and see all the different interpretations. And you know what? I'll plug it, why not? I've got a t-shirt store. If you guys like meat and art, and I would hope so if you watch this video about meat and art. I have a shirt that says just stew it, and it's got some stew, as well as many other awesome designs like Creativity Deluxe, Cosmic Creativity, Art Beat, XYZ. They're all there. The link will be in the description for you guys if you want to check it out. Also my Patreon, where you guys will get twice the amount of videos over there. Like, I answer your guys' questions and pretty much just talk to you about art and stuff, what's going on with the channel. I can talk about your art with you if you send it in. And yeah, that's where that's at. good old Patreon. That's also in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed, I ask you to like, and frick, I forget how to do my outro. So let's start over. That's pretty much it for this one, guys. If you would please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. See you guys later.